Hi everyone, happy Saturday. I am so excited to go live today. I must admit, I'm a little nervous because I haven't podcast or done a podcast since 2024. And I'm here doing a live with Healing Reflections with Keisha. I'm so excited to be here, I truly am, because when you deeply believe in what you do, and what you're called to, no matter how nervous you are at times when you're about to do it, you just move forward anyway. My screen was blanking out because it was telling me that my time limit, because I put a time limit on social media. I think everyone should actually. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going live today. Typically, I do a recording of my healing reflections. This is week number 2. Let me just straighten my camera just a little bit here, just in case. People are watching and they're like, hey, this is kind of crooked. And I hope to download this live at the end. So we need to make sure that it is proper. Yes, you can see my bookshelf back there a little bit. Oh, that should give us credibility, right? Nothing has to be perfect, just honest. So let me just try to get that straight a little bit. All right, so much for that, right? It's not going to get any straighter than what it is. Trying to get it right about there. All right, we're going to get started. Or we're going to continue, I should say. I think we can leave it right about there. And I had this all set up before, like earlier. All right, here we go. All right, I think we got it. Thank you, Lord. All right. So, Healing Reflections with Keisha. And of course, you know, I am doing a 7-week series from the book Healing of the Heart, Lessons from My Journey. And if you don't know, I am Keisha Henry. I am the founder, director, and senior clinician at New Beginning Healing Institute, where we believe that every woman and girl deserves a positive self-esteem. Truly. And we work from that place every single time. Whether it's a phone call, it's a consultation, it doesn't matter. We're in groups. We live, speak, and breathe through that mission. Every woman and girl deserves a positive self-esteem. So Healing of the Heart, Lessons from My Journey is a central piece of the work that we continue to do. So the 7-week series, we're looking at different parts of healing. Last week, the first topic was on shame. And this week, we're looking at identity. And I've decided to start this evening's poetry reading with my personal affirmation. And it is my recommendation that if you have not developed or cultivated any affirmations for yourself, yes, the media talks a lot about affirmations. And perhaps one of our sessions, I will talk more about that. But for now, I will say that affirmations are truths that we speak about ourselves, because our words are powerful. If you're a creationist, that I often reference, you know that scriptures speak about, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You know, what we speak from our heart, you know, from the heart, you know, we speak. You know, so whatever is in abundance in our heart, that's what will come through our mouths, and that's what we're actually creating in the natural. And so affirmations are very important, they're very significant, and they should never be, what's the word I'm looking for, undervalued. So with that, we're going to start with my affirmations today. You know, I typically put the dates on when I create my affirmations because I have several over the years, and I have created new ones, and when I have seemed to have, I would say, feel as though I have attained, I write new ones, and I recommend that you do the same. All right, so to remain the frequency of abundance. So here are my affirmations. Number 1, I am calm because I trust in divine timing. Number 2, I am bold because I was made in the greatness of His image. One of my favorites. And by now you know who He is for me. And thirdly, above all, I do what I say I would do. Means discipline. case in point, I am doing this healing reflections with Keisha. So I will tell you that this takes discipline, and discipline does not always feel comfortable, and there are times when quite frankly, it just feels downright inconvenient. All right, so what is our topic this evening? Our topic is on identity. Now, I'll begin with this statement. Your identity, my identity, is discovered in truth, right? It's not in the opinions of others. Now, unfortunately, myself and many of you have lived and perhaps still live in the opinions of others. So we'll talk a little bit at the end from a reflection standpoint about what I just said. In fact, I'll repeat it. Your identity, my identity, is discovered in truth and not in the opinions of others. So I know some of you I can hear probably are saying, easier said than done. Sure, right? That's true for every one of us, right? Or most of us, I should say. So again, because we do believe that every woman and girl deserves a positive self-esteem, and we know that can be very challenging for a lot of us as women or girls, or men in general. But I speak from a standpoint as a woman. I cannot speak as a man because I'm not. And so I speak from experience, not just my own, but that of my clients and family members that I have supported and served and continue to serve. And we understand that, before I even read the poetry then, we understand by now, and I'll continue to talk about that, how important it is to have a solid understanding or a solid or commitment to a solid understanding of your development. The research talks about identity in many ways. The primary way that it talks about identity development is that development takes place of the identity, whether from a cultural standpoint and also from a psychological standpoint. And those two components really form much of who we are and how we live our lives. And so if that's not done properly or has proper ingredients, if you will, then the identity is what I would say disfigured. And you can see behaviors that come from a disfigured, and this is quote unquote, this is just figuratively speaking, a disfigured personality wherein there is lack of confidence, there is poor self-esteem, there is over dependence on others, there is the second guessing of the self, there is a living beneath one's potential, there is depression, anxiety, and other disorders or dysfunctional behaviors that will flow from each of those things that I just mentioned. So identity is really important. Why is that important? Well, truth be told, you have a life that is designed to flourish. There is something in you that was deposited a long time ago that needs to be displayed, that needs to be acted upon. And without having this part of our identity or identity sorted out and sorted through and understood, then of course we do not live up to our potential or what we were designed for. So this is where a lot of my passion lies, is helping women and girls to work through the contamination, the disfiguration, that has taken place. And so that's my mission, honestly. And having grown through much of those things myself, because I will tell you that it's kind of hard to do this work if I hadn't done the work in my life and continue to do so. So without further ado, I'm going to read today from Healing of the Heart, Lessons from My Journey. And I will tell you that this poem is a combination of my story and the story of other women whom I've served. And once I'm finished reading that, we'll have some more reflection points on identity. So with that, the title of this poem is Living in Their Shadow. And typically that's what happens when we don't have a true identity. We live in cognitive dissonance. What we truly deep down believe and want, which is in conflict with what we've been told or given. And so with those two together in the same container, which is ourselves, then there's a masking that unfolds, and or several masks, I should say plural. So Living in Their Shadow is a poem that flowed out of my own cognitive dissonance, and of course observing the cognitive dissonance with others. Living in Their Shadow. Despite past failures, pain, and suffering, you are a person of worth, a child of the King. Valuable creature you are, destined to light the earth, like sun, moon, and star. There's a plan for your life. You have dreams and beliefs. Hope is waiting to take flight. Come up higher. Come up higher. Why are you down there? Forget naysayers and relinquish fears. A seat at the table for you is set, up front and center. Don't you ever forget. Understand who you are. I'll repeat that line. Understand who you are. Fear is a reproach, not a truth teller. You are a woman of valor, purpose, and honor. I love that. I really, really, really love that. As I was reading that, I was thinking back on the times that I have sat with different women who've sat on my couch, who have privileged me to work with them, to work with the tangled ball of yarn of personality that they brought. And honestly, it is a privilege to do so, because I always tell them, I'm not better than you. No, I'm not. It's just that perhaps I have done the work ahead of you so that I can help you. This is what I share, or sometimes those are some of the things that I share. So as I read that, I reflected on the primary reasons perhaps that I have seen in my practice and in my own life too, that have led to the creation of Living in Their Shadow. A personal point is that when I was growing up, I was told what my vocation will be. I was told that I was going to be a lawyer. And some of you already know my story. I did go to law school. That did not work out for me. And, I'm going to tell you too, it was very crushing because I did not get to finish. And that's also part of my story in this book. And it really, again, just added, insult to injury already. Having been told at a young age that I was going to go to law school. And honestly, I tried to live up to that. And there's a cognitive dissonance that started very early for me in terms of, who deep down I felt like I wanted to be versus what I was told to be. Which brings me to my next point. A lot of women that I have served in this community, in practice community, they come with what I call cultural bypassing. They come with cultural bypassing or spiritual bypassing. I find that a lot of women have sought me out because they have learned, not because I ever advertised that I am a Christian. I never did that. But some persons have said, hey, when I read your profile, I just feel something. And then when I talked to you, I just kind of knew that you were. And I'm also from the Caribbean too. So that was an added feature. But what I find that women have come to me about in terms of looking at their identity and wanting to work out this cognitive dissonance that they feel is this cultural bypassing and this spiritual bypassing that affects their identity. I'm very big on that. Very, very big. Let me explain what spiritual bypassing is, because I've experienced that myself, even as a Christian growing up in the church. I will tell you that my grandfather was a pastor, okay? Yes. Could not wear lipstick, and if you're from the Caribbean, you know exactly where I'm going with this, right? Okay. And hi, Keisha. Thank you for joining. It says Keisha Dior. Let me just wave back at you to let you know that I see you and I thank you. So spiritual bypassing is the use of spiritual practice and beliefs to avoid confronting difficult emotions, difficult trauma that one has experienced, and even psychological wounds. And being in the church, because I grew up in the church, I have witnessed, right, psychological wounds that different persons have, sustained, including myself. And because if you know my story at all, I was a teen mom. I was a teen mom in the church. Okay? So that's spiritual bypassing. And women have come to me, let me just pause here. The religious backgrounds that I've seen with spiritual bypassing very heavily, and I know what I'm about to say is very controversial, and I'll probably get messages about this, but I will share because this is actually true from practice. And as a researcher, as a clinician, I can speak openly about this. I have served a lot of women from the Caribbean background, Latin Caribbean background, have come with spiritual bypassing that are from Jehovah's Witnesses background, from Mormonism, and also from Christianity. Okay? And again, so spiritual bypassing says, hey, you know what? I'm just not allowed to confront the things I've experienced, whether it was physical trauma, sexual trauma. I'm just not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed. God doesn't allow me to do that. And that is far from the truth. And so I find that a lot of women have come. Hey, I'm seeking you because I think I can talk to you guys about this. Living in the shadows of, in the guise of, I'm a Christian. I can't talk about the psychological wounds. I can't face these difficult emotions. Oh, and God forbid, I can't talk to my parents about this thing that have happened to me and perhaps how they've affected me by the beliefs that they also have held. Nothing is further from the truth, right? And so living in their shadows is a very significant poem. Let me just underscore that. The book of Psalms is a book of poetry. Can you imagine in the life of David what he faced and how he used poetry, that is now our scriptures today, to address the psychological wounds, perhaps the trauma from war that he saw, and how he depended on his God, my God, to take him through those difficulties. So how is it then we have modernized in the 21st century spiritual bypassing as a way of masking difficult circumstances that we have lived and not allowing ourselves to express these things and to be able to work through them? What I have seen as a result of spiritual bypassing and also cultural bypassing. Cultural bypassing says, for example, I'll use myself as an example. Speak when spoken to and only answer when you're called. Okay, so many of you, and I've worked with a lot of Caribbean women, whether it's from Jamaica, Haiti. I can go on and on about the different women that I have worked with, and it's the same cultural bypassing. They're not allowed to address anything that have happened to them because culturally we're not allowed. Just not allowed. And what that does then, so let me just round this out. What this does, right, is tell you who you can be. It tells you who you can be and who you cannot be. And here's another part that gets me. The women that I see, and let me just be clear, just in case persons are thinking, well, you see women, I see women from various backgrounds, various socioeconomic backgrounds. Professional women who are becoming professional. And let me tell you, the ailment, right, is still the same. The dilemmas are still the same. Whether, it's a principal or a doctor, I'm telling you, sits on the couch with these same cultural bypassing issues, spiritual bypassing issues. And I will tell you too, I have seen people from the clergy background who struggle with these same spiritual bypassing issues and cultural bypassing. So living in your shadows is a real thing. It's a real thing. So here's the deal. What's my reflection on this? As a result then, many of us spend our years trying to become something else, to become, what others expect us to be. And I'm going to tell you too, I've worked with women who have suffered significant childhood sexual trauma. That masking is significant, very much significant. And that takes time to work through, right? Because from a young age, think about from a neurobiological perspective, your system is turned upside down, right? So whatever happened to you in the body, guess what? It tells the brain something to do differently. So you're going to behave differently. When you become a woman, as you matriculate into life, becoming a woman, you behave differently. You feel unworthy in all your relationships. I've seen it. I've seen it. Right? And then when you layer that with spiritual bypassing or cultural bypassing after having suffered childhood sexual trauma, oh my. Living in their shadows is real. Okay, so what's my call to action? Here is a prompt I want to read to you today. Because remember, well, in fact, now I'll read two scriptures. Romans 14:22. So whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Blessed is the one who does not condemn himself by what he approves. That's a whole nother session. Romans 9:16. I don't have it in front of me, but I will read it anyway. What I like about Romans 9:16, it talks about how, and this is going right in the heart of spiritual bypassing. This is going right at the heart of it, to dispel these wrong way of thinking, these myths about Christianity and about God and about talking about these things that actually happen to us. Romans 9:16 says this. I don't have it in front of me, but I know it. It says children who were unborn before they could do wrong or right are called according to his purpose. Called. Look it up when you get a chance. Romans 9:16. Okay? So children before they're unborn, before they can do wrong or right, because we live in a fallen world. We do. And which is why you exist and I exist in our vocation, right? So we can edify and assist and support change. Because we were called ahead of time, according to Romans 9:16, to do good work before we could do any wrong or right. Exactly. So Romans 9:16 lets me know that ahead of time we were called to do good works, knowing fully well that we were going to be in a fallen creation and we'd be contaminated. But look at how God sees us. He sees us transformed, not marred, even though he knew that we were going to be. So there is no need for spiritual bypassing. There is no need for cultural bypassing. These are man-made. These are not God-made. So I'm going to read the last line again. It says that, understand who you are. Fear is a reproach, not a truth teller. You are a woman of valor, purpose, and honor. And last but not least, I will close out with this prompt. Very, very important prompt. What was born in your heart that you still have yet to honor? What was born in your heart, right? What was born in your heart? So remember Romans 9:16, right? Before we were born to do that, we can do wrong or right. There was something deposited in us. Yes, it was there. What was born in your heart that you still have yet to honor? So that's my call to action today for anyone who's listening and will listen. We're talking about identity, true identity, not what others expect us to be, not the things that have happened to us, because we do live in a fallen world. We do live in a fallen creation that things would have happened. But there's room for us to make a difference and to change. So with that, I end week number 2, Healing Reflections with Keisha, looking at identity. And if any of what I shared resonates with you, drop me a line and say, hey, I want to know more about maybe spiritual bypassing or cultural bypassing, or I want to learn more about healing after heart lessons from my journey, or maybe I want to learn more about your groups that you have coming up, or maybe you can guide me in a direction where I can get some help, because it doesn't have to be with us. It doesn't. We are New Beginning Healing Institute. We're here to support women and girls and families. So you need help wherever you are. We can be of support to provide information and guidance in that direction. So thank you for joining this live, and I look forward to seeing you next week Saturday. And next week Saturday we're going to be looking at courage. Courage is the next topic, and how appropriate, right? After talking about shame last week, talking about identity this week, Next week, we're going to look at the topic of courage. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time. Bye.